Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the second annual regular meeting of the Mayor and Council being held in Borough Hall Monday, June 27th, starting at 6:35. Missy, could you please read the roll?
Mayor Nunziato.
Here.
Councilman Goldsack.
Here.
Councilman Leahy.
Here.
Councilman Coakley.
Here.
Councilwoman McGowan. Councilman Beg Roberson.
Here.
Councilman Guzman.
Here.
Thank you. If you're willing and able, could you please stand for the salute to the flag?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Missy?
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Law, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, notice of this meeting was transmitted to the Record and Herald News and filed with the Borough Clerk on December 13th and 30th, 2021, and is posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Hall.
Thank you, Missy. Tonight we have no presentations. Reviews to the proposed agenda?
We have one item under page 3, under Finance. We'll be adding item B, resolution number 139, requesting approval of items for revenue and appropriation. Nothing more for me.
Anybody from the council?
No, Mayor.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Goldsack. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coakley. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. Lieutenant, can you come up here for a second? All right, now we'll move on to the hearing of citizens. Anybody from the public wishing to speak, please come up, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Thank you. Excuse me? Sure.
David Luberno, 423 Stuyvesant Avenue. A few questions for this evening. I know I sent a letter to the council, some of you, about the law that you wrote for alcohol and how I believe it's incoherent. Gave you several reasons why. Was hoping that you would address that this evening, seeing that to me it seems like a pretty substantial change. I understand what the intent was. Unfortunately, that's not what you wrote. Secondly, with respect to the ordinance concerning alcohol, I was wondering if the council could explain why they struck several of the provisions that existed previously, if they could explain that and why it doesn't implement sort of the rules and ordinances that many other towns have implemented with respect to those features as far as closing after hours, back rooms, minors at a bar, that sort of things, sitting at a bar, all these type of things which don't seem to be considered, and some of them were actually in the ordinance previously. I know you said that you studied these around the state, but it doesn't seem that we reflect many of those. Third, with respect to the alcohol ordinance. The ordinance as it stands now allows restaurants, or would allow restaurants, should you change it, allows restaurants of a 125-seat capacity to stay open till 2 a.m., allows the hotel. You know, the hotel back in 1999 or 2000, when the ordinance was changed to permit that, the idea was that would drive economic development. So I'm not sure about if there are restrictions. I understand there'll be a roof on the or the roof of the Williams Center will contain a restaurant bar. I'm just interested to see what the size of that would be. You know, the Renaissance Hotel is not in the center of the community, doesn't create that kind of potential for noise after a concert when there'll be presumably thousands of people getting out, many of them wanting to go up to a bar. So I'm not sure why we don't address that issue also. Again, talking about passing this ordinance without informing the community about how these licenses will be distributed. Many towns implemented these ordinances many years ago to allow bars. We're doing it now, but it seems to me that this is an economic asset of the community, and I'm interested about how that would be distributed. You know, we read that the World Cup is going to be over at Giant Stadium, and we even read in the Bergenite that there'll be thousands of hotel rooms constructed in this Meadowlands district. We have an area on Route 3 and across Route 3 that would be prime to have hotels in them. So I'm not sure how we're going to hand out to a restaurant in town and how much economic development that would drive, seeing as the Renaissance Hotel right now pays about $550,000 a year in taxes to this community, which is a large percentage of the budget for the municipality itself. I understand that would be distributed to other entities also. But these are some of the questions that I have. I'm hoping that you'll address them this evening instead of just voting no, provide some rationale for what's going on. It would seem to me that we want to figure out how we're going to hand these out before we implement this ordinance and actually correct the ordinance before it gets passed. So those are some of the things that I have tonight. Hopefully we'll get some kind of answers. If I could go on to the Williams Center, a few questions, which was mentioned at the last meeting, why we would change to allow parking within the Williams Center proper.
Sir, you have less than a minute. Just let me
Okay, very well, thank you. So I'm wondering why we would allow that when the concept or the idea that's presented is that we would have a parking lot over where the parking lot exists now on Ettrick Terrace. It seems to be unnecessary to allow parking within the Williams Center property. Beyond that, again, the roof, the size of the roof, the idea that there could be a restaurant that could be fairly large and then remain open, the idea that people buy licenses, purchase them at auction, presumably, and then we'll have the rules in place and have a problem if the town or municipality wishes to change that. The other thing with respect to the Williams Center.
You're at your time, sir.
Okay, I'll be back. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
Hello, I'm Gerard Kane, 84 Van Riper Avenue. No, I hope you're listening. We do not want the amendments for the Williams Center passed tonight. You're forcing it upon us under the guise of saving the theater. You're not saving the theater. You're telling us you're saving the theater. The theater has never been successful. It's not going to be successful hidden inside an apartment building. The only way the theater could be successful is if it's subsidized. The developer is getting prime real estate for $1. It would only be fair if, if we get it without the theater, it's a zip, it's zero. You've accomplished nothing. This whole thing hinges on people getting emotional for their theater. And if that's the case, then it should be made that we keep a theater. What you're doing is putting up a building for a theater to fail in. Because we all know, we've gone to shows at the theater all for the last 30 years. How many people were there? Not too many. Doesn't have the capacity, it just will not succeed, so it needs to be subsidized. So if we're going to give this developer these extra units that he's asking for, let him give you something back. Because if the theater doesn't last there, we're going to be stuck with a big building that's affecting the parking, that's affecting our whole downtown that we don't want. It's all a smokescreen, the theater. And I said, I hope you're listening, because if we go back to Agnew Place, they started a petition that I think over 1,000 people now have signed. That's not an easy thing to do, to get 1,000 people to sign it. Most people are doing their everyday lives, and they don't pay attention to this stuff. So if you have 1,000 people, you should have listened. But you didn't. You went ahead with Agnew Place. We built a Parker. Now we built a Parker 2, right? So when you think tonight, when you vote yes for 20 or 25 extra units that they're asking for, add in how many units are in the Parker, how many units are in the Parker 2, how many units will be in the Agnew Place building, and ask yourself, is that good for this town? Will it be good in the long run? These buildings are going to kill us. There's this council, by letting this go on, we're going to be stuck with the buildings. We're not getting any, your pilot programs, we're getting next to nothing back. And they're going to be with us for decades. It's not like you bought a garbage truck and overpaid for it. These things will be with us for decades. The problems associated with them will be with us for decades. Well, so I ask you, when you vote tonight, think, listen, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Adam Zura, 94 Vreeland Avenue. The presentation of monkeypox facts that were mocked and condemned by narrow-minded ideologues at the last council meeting are being taken seriously by Governor Murphy. In fact, his contact tracing directive focused on the Jersey City man whose outbreak coincides with the June 4th event in Lincoln Park really says it all, and you really need to think about that before you make these radical decisions. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to close it to the public. I'm sorry, we have one thing to read in.
The foregoing was received from the Preserve Rutherford, New Jersey. A statement to the mayor and council. To begin, we are stating for the record our belief that Councilperson Goldsack's comments regarding opposition to the WCWC amendments at the last meeting belittled the validity and thoughtful concerns of citizens, including those of Ms. McCarthy, as read from her letter. While there are those who support the theater at all costs, there are others, including the PRNJ and our supporters, who demand the developer, the planning board, and the council demonstrate adequate reasons for overriding the tenets of the master plans to the extreme for which these amendments request. It is not enough to simply point to supporting the business district to demonstrate compliance to the master plan. To be clear, our fear is that a 9-story structure with 90 residences, far exceeding the master plan, will be built and that the theater component could fail. Should this occur, it would leave Rutherford with nothing more than a 9-story apartment building in the center of our business district. To questionably public benefit, a requirement of a redevelopment plan. This concern is further exacerbated by the amendment requested, which calls for the bulk variances associated with the parking structure to be applied to redevelopment area A. As Mr. Olivio himself has pointed out during his first presentation before the mayor and council, the only logical place for a parking area in Area A is the exact location of the theater. Why would the developer make this request and have it granted, if not as a backup plan for the possible failure of the theater component? This on its own demonstrates why the concerns of citizens are valid and should be respectfully addressed. That was submitted by Katie Marshall.
Thank you, Missy. Now I'm going to close it to the public and open it up for any council comment. Council President?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. King, thank you for your comments. You and I have sort of engaged in this offhanded dialogue through this over the course of a couple of meetings. Just want to point a few things out for the record. The Agnew redevelopment that you speak of, the petition that was put forth by residents in the community was to knock down amendments that were requested to expand the project itself. We did knock those amendments down. So what the developer was asking, we did not move that ordinance forward. We did not approve any amendments. So that redevelopment plan is still in place as it was passed in 2017, I think it was, 16 or 17. A redevelopment agreement has been proposed. Nothing has been signed as of yet. So there is no building going up at Agnew Place anytime soon. Your comment about the pilot, I just want to be clear about how pilots work, trying to just explain the process to the public. Yes, so they are described as being given tax breaks, per se. The way the pilot works is, though, and administrator, and I believe our redevelopment attorney was here, I don't know if he still is, 95% of that pilot goes into the borough. 5% gets allocated to the county. So the schools do not get a portion of the pilot payment. The schools do, however, get a portion of the land that is taxed at its conventional rate. So the land is taxed conventionally, so that's split the three ways as it normally is. The pilot, most of the money, 95% of the money comes to the borough, 5% goes to the county. That's how the pilot works. Obviously, never intending to offend any resident for offering to express their opinion about a particular situation. Just like to point to the interesting irony about how people can be so passionate about moving and saving and making something happen, and then, you know, a couple of months later, those passions are sort of put in another place, and that's fine. But I think people need to realize that, right? Opinions change, feelings change, and that's okay. We wanted to save the theater. We are in the process of trying to develop a plan with a person who is trying to save something that's been an issue in the borough of Rutherford for 30 plus years. I say let's work with them. And I will continue to do so, and I'm happy to continue to do so for as long as I sit in this seat. I believe that you can have a vibrant downtown with apartments, but still have a beautiful inner Rutherford. If a developer was going to come to me someday and say, I want to build an apartment building in the middle of Donaldson Avenue, I would laugh them out of the town. But if the developer is going to come to me and say, hey, listen, you got this plot of land right near your train station that's going to put a lot of foot traffic in your downtown, I'm going to have that conversation. And I think as a lot of people know, over the course of years, this stuff takes a long time. We've been talking about Agnew for probably before I was on the council. Thank you. We understand it's a hot button issue, and we appreciate the feedback, and we'll continue to take that all into account. And Mr. Olivo has been here every night to listen to everyone's feedback about his project. And I think we all want to see it succeed, right? Why wouldn't we want to see it succeed? But the thing is we don't know. There are no guarantees in life. A business could open up on Park Avenue today, and it could close tomorrow. And we have no contingency plan for that because that's just the economy. The best we can do is offer as much support as a community, as a governing body, to a person who's been trying to solve this issue that has been out there for so long for this town. Let's keep supporting him. That's my opinion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. Anybody else from the council wishing to speak? Seeing none? Mr. Zora, as usual, I have nothing to say. It's just absurd. Council President.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We will move on. First up, we have the approval of the regular meeting minutes from June 13, 2022. Councilman Malahi and Guzman were absent. Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coakley. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none. Missy?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Abstain?
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Abstain.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have resolution number 136. This is authorizing a change order number 5 to RSC Architects in the amount of $4,856.25. Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Roberson. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up, we have an authorization for the Borough Attorney to draft an ordinance pertaining to project labor agreement for public works projects in excess of $500,000. Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Guzman. Any questions or comments by the council?
Mayor, just briefly, Bob, could you just explain what we're authorizing here, what this ordinance is attempting to do? Thank you.
So yes, this ordinance is, if adopted, would require any municipal projects in excess of $500,000 to incorporate union leadership, union workers on the project, also create job apprenticeship positions for people to learn in the skilled trades. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Just briefly, speaking from personal experience, the only choice in life when I was in high school was to go to college. And not necessarily is always the best choice for everybody. And I think being able to put this ordinance in place, especially the apprenticeship piece of it, any way we could promote labor and the trades, I think is a good thing. So I'm happy to be able to start this process forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Missy?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Consent agenda. All items authorized to be consent by the council will be enacted by one motion. These items are routine in nature. Motion.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Roberson. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
We're going to move on now to Finance. Councilman Guzman.
Sorry about that. There we go. Sorry about that. First up, I have resolution number 139, requesting approval of items of revenue and appropriations, NJS 40A:4-87. I'd like to motion.
Motion by Councilman Guzman. Any questions? I'm sorry. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Roberson. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilman?
Regarding Councilwoman McGowan's committee assignments, I have nothing to report for her.
Thank you. Moving on, police.
Nothing to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on, Public Works.
Think you have a lot going on today? I have resolution number 135, annual award of contract to Tidbury Creek Farms, Inc. for purchase of trees in the amount not to exceed $35,000. I'd like the motion.
Motion by Councilman Guzman. Any questions? I'm sorry, may I have a second?
Second.
Second by Council President. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to ask council to authorize design engineering and bid document for 2022 road program in the amount of $48,600. Motion.
Motion by Councilman Guzman. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Roberson. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up, I have resolution number 138, award of 2022 road improvement project to Smith Sondy Asphalt Construction in the amount of $1,081,208.63. I'd like to motion.
Motion by Councilman Guzman. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Lay. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you.
For committee reports, this weekend, I'd like to say congratulations, and a big thank you to our Green Team and our DPW for their efforts in holding the Shred Day, which was very successful, and Styrofoam Collection Day this past Saturday. They have reported back they were able to take in 6,100 pounds of shredding. That's a lot of paper coming in. So great job by the team. Also, on June 18th, the Green Team held the annual compost workshop. Estimated 20 residents attended. And as a result, 5 composters were purchased and delivered. So nice efforts once again by our Green Team. On last Monday, they had the bike ride. Green Team was held last Monday at 25 to 30 residents attended. And the next bike ride is July 11th, leaving from Felician University. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on, fire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion to accept the resignation of Jacqueline Caraprisi from Engine Company Number 4.
Motion by Councilman Coakley. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Council President. Any questions or comments by the council?
Just a quick note, just would like to thank Ms. Caraprisi for her time and service, and look forward to welcoming her back when she has more time to give. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman
Oh,
Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you all. Second, I make a motion to pass resolution number 137, which is to award a cooperative contract to Mall Chevrolet for a 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe for the fire department in the amount of $47,871.20.
motion by Councilman Coakley. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Leahy. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Beg Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you all. And just in closing tonight, for those members of the community who had a child submit to the Youth Art Month banner program, your banners are available for pickup at 261 Santiago Avenue. There are a bunch left. Please make your way over there and pick them up.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on, Councilman Roberson.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council President.
Nothing to report tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Tonight, we do have one appointment. It's a provisional in accordance with the rules and regulations of the State of New Jersey Civil Service Commission, effective following the swearing in. I'd ask for council consent. May I have a motion?
I make a motion, Mayor.
Future Officer Arnold? For Future Officer Arnold.
Make a motion.
Motion by Councilman Lay. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Council President. Any questions or comments by the council? Take a roll call.
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Big Robertson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations, officer. You got really lucky because these meetings go a lot longer.
Good luck.
Next up, I'd like to ask for appointment of Kelly Lancaster, Recreational Camp Director. I'd ask for a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Council President, have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Guzman. Any questions or comments by the council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Big Robertson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have. Now we're going to open it up for another set of hearing of citizens for agenda items only. Anybody wishing to speak, please step up to the mic, state your name, address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, please.
Rod Kane, 84 Van Riper Avenue. I just want to go back to you on that petition that you're talking about. If it only applied to Agnew, I can guarantee you, $1 to donuts. The people that signed that
Sorry, Mr.
petition.
King, we can only speak to what's on the agenda at this point.
You handcuff people and they can't, he said something, he got to say his part, I can't respond?
I'm sorry.
Crazy.
I mean, you could speak to him offline, but this is just the way it's set up.
David Labruno, 423 Stuyvesant Avenue. With respect to the Williams Center, I don't think anyone here is against that being a success. Certainly not. I think the whole community wants it to be a success. The issue that I have is we went through a process which passed a plan. That plan was to entice someone to come and do it. Now we have someone who's enticed to come and do it. That doesn't end the negotiation, right? I mean, you, council, is still in the process of negotiating a deal with the person, the developer. You seem to have forgotten that. Certainly everyone, again, is to have a success for this project. One thing that was mentioned, though, was concerning pilots, and that hasn't been addressed with respect to this issue, the Williams Center, but neither has any of the financials that would lead one to determine that it makes sense for the community to increase the size of this development by 25 units. Is that necessary to have this project be a success? We've not heard any financials. We've just heard that the developer would like to have an additional 25 units. Okay, but that's it. Nothing else has been presented to the community. Certainly, I'm sure he would like even more, if possible. And God bless him, because it is a negotiation. He's negotiating with you to determine how much money, in some aspect, at this part of the project, the community is willing to kick in. It is a negotiation. We've not heard anything about pilots yet. I'm sure that's coming down the track. I think it's only fair for the community to know what the subsidy is that the community is providing. That goes with pilots. That the community is getting it, and maybe the borough's attorney for development could address this issue, and that is, if I remember correctly, it was said by that attorney that The entirety of the pilot, the way that the law is structured, the entirety of the pilot goes to the borough and then 5% to the county. Not that the land goes as the land previously went. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe that could be readdressed again, because either I'm confused or others are confused. But again, I think we've forgotten that this is still a negotiation. Giving the developer the ability to not make 45 parking spaces that would be required for the 90 units is a subsidy by the community of $1.1 million. If it's $25,000 a parking space that would be shy, nothing's been spoken about the parking lot on Ettrick Terrace that would be transferred, and what's the value of that? Nor the right-of-way, and what's the value of that to the community? I think it's only fair that some of these financial issues be addressed, spoken to the community, so that they have some knowledge of what's going on, besides nothing. So hopefully we'll hear something. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and open it up to the council. President?
Thank you. Mr. Bruno, to your point about process. So right now, we are in the stage of the redevelopment process where we are agreeing to the zoning of the particular area in question, correct? Okay. So now, beyond that, we have to negotiate a redevelopment plan and a financial agreement associated with this particular project. So we are not there yet. To your point, we are absolutely not there yet. We are literally talking about the zoning of the area in question for this particular proposed project. Proposed project, right? So now we have to get that in place, and then we have to negotiate a redevelopers agreement. Then we have to negotiate a financial agreement, at which time Mr. Olivo and his group will have to submit financials to the borough for us to review in anticipation of a potential pilot. We don't even know what he's going to ask for yet. I understand. You want to see everything in one shot. I would love that. What I've learned, I've recently changed jobs in the past year, and I work on large-scale factory redevelopment projects, right? So what I've learned in working on those large-scale factory redevelopment projects, I am literally negotiating utilities right now. Nothing but utilities. Haven't even talked about price per square foot, haven't talked about potential statewide incentives, local incentives, pipes in the ground. It is a process that takes an incredibly long time. And when the time comes that financials are being discussed and redevelopers agreements are being discussed, those are going to have to be put out to the public. He's going to have to submit applications. We're going to have to sign agreements. We're going to have to authorize those agreements. Those agreements will get spoken about at council meetings. Mr. Olivo, again, has been here for every meeting regarding this. And I'm sure, I'm fairly confident that you've probably spoken to him in the past and probably posed some questions to him in the past. And I'm sure Mr. Olivo and his group have been really responsive to those questions and at least been willing to sit and hear you out, as they have been with everyone else. So we're going to get there. We are going to get there. And you well know we're going to get there because you've been around for quite some time now. Agnew, Parker, everything that we've gone through, you've been sitting in that seat to your credit. I will give you all the credit in the world, and I'll continue this dialogue as we have in the past, but we're not there yet. We're just simply not there yet. Right now, we're just talking about zoning. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else from the council wishing to speak? Seeing none, Council President.
Ordinances on second reading. Okay. First off, we have the ordinance amending the plenary retail distribution. I'd like to ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance to amend and revise Chapter 7 alcoholic beverages of the Borough Code of the Borough of Rutherford.
Thank you. I'd like to make the motion that the ordinance be passed on second reading and advertised according to law.
Motion by Council President. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coakley. I'm going to open this up for public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak about this ordinance and this ordinance only, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Zor, before you stroll up, I know Mr. LeBruno had a number of questions. I don't know if Bo managed to sort of take note.
The issue of the pilot, 5% is given to the county.
The alcohol.
Oh. So. Did see the memo that Mr. LeBruno submitted. I reviewed the memo where Mr. LeBruno was requesting clarity. I reviewed the ordinance that was prepared. Anybody who's looking to purchase a liquor license from the borough is well advised as to what is permitted and what is not. The hours of operation are clearly stated. There is no restaurant in the new issue that would be issued a license to stay open till 2 o'clock. I don't know where that's coming from. There was a prohibition for all licenses after 2 o'clock, but there's prohibitions for specific licenses that are issued under the new provision that only extend to 11 o'clock. So we can talk about the structure of the ordinance, and we can draft it many different ways, but it's clear to a purchaser what is permitted and what is not. As far as the strike out of the back room, that was made at the suggestion of our consultant. We have an ABC consultant reviewed the ordinance as well. The ABC consultant suggested that one provision about the back room be stricken because it prevents the movement of alcohol through the facility or stored in the facility. So a person who was purchasing a license may be turned away from bidding on it with the prohibition that they cannot use that facility, because in the alcoholic beverage control law, all parts of a building that are used for even the storage of the alcohol must be part of the license. I think I've covered all the areas that Mr. LeBruno has.
Thank you, Bill.
There was one thing, though, I do agree with Mr. LeBruno, where the word "served" was left out of the ordinance. But in terms of issuing these licenses, we can move forward. I can make that amendment at a later date. It doesn't affect how we're wishing to proceed, which is either through a public bid or an historical distribution, which hasn't been decided yet, nor has the prices or what we expect from these.
Okay, anybody from the public, again, wishing to speak to this subject matter and this subject matter only?
Adam Zor again, 94 Vreeland Avenue. Excuse me. This effort to end Rutherford's distinction as a dry town is without merit. The Bergen County Clerk has affirmed that only 40% of Rutherford's 10,608 votes that were cast during that ballot cycle supported the non-binding resolution or question. Furthermore, the 125-seat minimum appears to exclude every local restaurant and only benefits the owner of the proposed Native Center development project. This results in a discriminatory ordinance, and the measure should be struck down tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
David Labruno, 423 Stuyvesant Avenue. Concerning the hours of operation of the restaurant licensee, the ordinance does set hours that are prohibited. Would it not mean that the inverse hours are, sets hours that are prohibited? Would it not mean that the other hours are permitted for other licensees? And then just one note, the hours in a day between the hours of 11 p.m. and 10 a.m. by standard use of the English language are the hours from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. I guess if there's an alternate definition of day, then maybe that's possible. But as I wrote in my note, there are an infinite number of ways to say it. So I don't understand why you wouldn't attempt to make it crystal clear. Thank you.
Anybody else for the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and open up for any council comment. Microphone.
May imply that you're permitted during the other hours, except when you have another provision in the ordinance that says that certain other licensees are not prohibited also in other hours. So it's covered in the ordinance quite clearly.
Thank you, Bo. Seeing nothing else from the council, Missy?
Councilman Goldtag?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Big Robertson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we have the ordinance regarding the Williams Center redevelopment plan. I'd like to ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance of the Borough of Rutherford in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, adopting an amendment to the Theater District Redevelopment Plan, Area A, Sylvan Walkway, Springdale, Glen Road, Orient Way, and Ettrick Terrace parking area for the Theater District Redevelopment Area.
I'd like to make the motion that the ordinance be passed on second reading and advertised according to law.
Motion by Councilman Goldsack. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coakley. Yep, you're going to open this up to the public again for any comment on this subject and this subject matter only. Maybe you should sit up front, Mr. Zorba.
Maybe we should just give you a mic. And put your name on it. That's going to be my gift to you.
I believe this is only my third three-peat in all the time I've been here. But anyway, Adam Zora, 94 Vreeland Avenue. Some of what you know about the Williams project is that Dr. Williams' descendants were excluded from the process. Those not here when the Performing Arts Center thrived have told those who were what it was and what it should be. Residents wanted the center restored and not a Hoboken high-rise. Bergen County had no faith in the plan, cut its losses, and contributed $6 million to the Bergen PAC. The council failed to keep its promises to preserve the original beauty of the Rivoli Theater, maintain the downtown's aesthetic character, shield the project from residential view, and abide by the dark sky principles. The $4.9 million valuation set by the county was cut by more than 50% on the borough's tax rolls, benefiting the new owner at the expense of much-needed tax revenue. We also know that Native Center Development LLC was registered by CPA Brandon Caraprice approximately 2 weeks prior to being announced as the buyer. The project's New York City-based architect, Masana O'Rourke, specializes in furniture design, functional products, and ethereal interiors. Their plan to cleave the performing arts space from the Rivoli and bury the theater in the bowels of an 8-story for-profit building sets the theater component up for failure and creates a loss leader that the owner will be able to use to file countless tax appeals. None of Chuck Olivo's public concessions have been memorialized in public documents. Blanketing the exterior of the historic and original Borough Hall in aluminum sheeting disqualifies him as a preservation expert. Tonight's amended proposal also sets the stage to give away another $1 million in public property for private gain. At this point, the only missing piece or link is the identity of the project's financier. Now, we all know that the voters just fired the council's front man. The question is, who's next? The council has a lot of explaining to do before moving forward with its plan to ignore the will of the people. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
Howard Kane, 84 Van Riper. I said, as far as the parking for the Williams Center, you're not going to need parking for the theater because the theater, the way you have it set up, is not going to survive. It's meant to fail. And you're going to need parking for all the cars that are going to go into the extra units when you push it up to 100. And most people have 2 cars, the people who are visiting them, and are going to take up all the spots for your downtown. That's what you're going to need parking for.
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
David Labruno, 423 Stuyvesant. Williams Center, I guess I'm misunderstanding the process to some extent, because when we changed the zoning tonight, that sets the permitted uses and size of the building and parking and all of those things. And so the developer's agreement, as I understand it, the developer owns the property outright right now. And so if they come back with something that meets this plan, you can still reject it? Is that correct? I guess I'm not sure about that. And I'd love to be informed, right? Because typically when you have zoning, even if zoning and then you meet zoning, right? So you're saying with this zoning, the developer still has to come back and ask us, I have a plan that meets zoning, can I do it? Okay, that's a question. If someone could answer that, I'd appreciate it.
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and open up for any council comment. Have at it, Mark.
Bob, could you just help me out with the process post-approving of a redevelopment plan? Oh, Kevin. Oh, Kevin is here. I'm sorry, Kevin. I did not see you sitting there. I would love for you to explain the process post-redevelopment plan. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Section 6 of the redevelopment plan is entitled Redevelopment Actions. Subsection heading Redevelopers Agreement. Once a redeveloper is selected, the redeveloper will be required to enter into a redevelopers agreement with the borough that stipulates the precise nature and extent of the improvements to be made and their timing and phasing as permitted therein. The answer to Mr. Labruno's question is yes. Even though this redevelopment plan sets forth the zoning that applies to the property, the redeveloper will be required to be designated by this body as the redeveloper for the property and will be required to enter into a redevelopment agreement that is subject to the approval of this body. That agreement will set forth more specifically what the redeveloper will do. So this council retains control over what will happen on that site, when it will happen, and who's going to do whatever it is.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody else from the council have any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close to the council. Missy?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Big Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, Health Department, Councilman Malay.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to amend Chapter 116A, Tobacco Products. I'd like to ask Missy to read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 116A of the Borough of Rutherford Code entitled Tobacco Products.
Thank you. I make a motion that the ordinance be passed on second reading and advertised according to law.
Motion by Councilman Malay. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Council President. Now going to open this up to the public for any comments on this subject and this subject matter only. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and open up for any council comment. Seeing none, Missy, could you please take the roll?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Big Roberson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. Recreation, Councilman Goldsack.
Thank you, Mayor. We have an ordinance related to the bus driver salary. I'd like to ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance to amend and supplement ordinance number 3418-17 adopted on April 10, 2017, entitled an ordinance regulating the employment, tenure, and discharge of certain officers and employees of the Borough of Rutherford under the provisions of the Civil Service Act of New Jersey.
I'd like to make a motion that the ordinance be passed on second reading and advertised according to law.
Motion by Councilman Goldsack. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Leahy. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this subject? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public, and I'll open it up to the council for any comments. Seeing none, just basically, these are 3 bus drivers that work for the Board of Ed. They all make 3 different salaries, so we had to amend it to cover their salaries. Missy, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman Big Robertson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Coakley.
Thank you, Mayor. Bringing the ordinance on second reading to amend the fire safety fees and the creation of fire watch rates. Missy, will you please read the ordinance?
An ordinance to amend and revise Chapter 34A, Fire Safety of the Borough Code of the Borough of Rutherford.
Thank you. Make a motion?
Motion by Councilman Coakley. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Robertson. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this subject and this subject matter only? Seeing none, I'll close it to the public and open it up for any council comment.
Just brief explanation. This is bringing our fire safety fees in line with other municipalities and creating fire watch rates, which will reimburse our department members who sit on site while certain mechanicals are being serviced through our various buildings and structures throughout town.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to open it up to the public for this subject and this subject matter only, if anybody cares to speak. Seeing none, I'm going to close to the public, open it up to the council. Seeing none, Missy?
Councilman Goldsack?
Yes.
Councilman Leahy?
Yes.
Councilman Coakley?
Yes.
Councilman McGowan? Oops. Councilman Big Robertson?
Yes.
Councilman Guzman?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll now accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Council President. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great